How are you doing, guys? It's ZDEyE here. So we got information regarding of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now I want to also mention a little bit regarding of the so-called PlayStation 5 Slim as well, even though it's not exactly, well, it doesn't seem to be exactly going to be slim. Now this information all is coming from Tom Henderson. He is extremely reliable source with the leaking all so many interesting information in terms of the hardware, especially coming to, anything that's coming from PlayStation. He's the guy that has been mostly correct about many things. As an example, he was the one that first reported regarding of the Q handheld, DualSense Edge controller, and also the PlayStation InZone line of the products. See, like, he has a very strong track record. Now, regarding the PlayStation 5 Pro, he constantly kept on saying that do not expect it to be like skinnier or far smaller, because the concept of the slim is not exactly correct, but it's more or less of a different little bit hardware for the PlayStation 5. So maybe for the engineers or the so they could actually produce these consoles on a faster rate. And as such, what makes this whole conversation interesting, that PlayStation 5 Pro has been mentioned in the article. The key to gaming.com was actually written also by Tom Henderson, and he exactly mentions that PlayStation 5 Pro may be targeting of the release in November of 2024. So that's very exciting. So it's basically a little bit more than a year to go until we will see something related towards the PlayStation 5 Pro. And there's actually information that this has actually got a code name by the name of Project Trinity. It's funny because if you guys do not know, PlayStation VR 2 initially was called Project Morpheus, and the PlayStation 4 Pro was initially called Project Neo. Man, somebody out there in Sony really loves the Matrix movies, and personally I love them too, but it's kind of still funny how it works. Now, there's been actually information that this PlayStation 5 Pro has been in development since early of 2022, so it's relatively recent, a little more than a year since this initial start of the development. The dev kits actually, it will be going out this November. Some people are actually reporting that they already have it. Well, not like they're reporting to say, oh, I have it or something like that. Obviously, it's not believable. But the developers that, maybe, for example, first party lineup, they are the ones that perhaps already have the dev kit and they know what to expect out of the PlayStation 5 Pro and what kind of compromises they need to make or not make, and such as that, what kind of limitations of the console would there be, or would there not be at all. That would be awesome though. Another thing, this is information I do not quite understand, and it seems like Tom Henderson himself does not understand, but all he mentions that it should be noted at least. It's regarding the 30 WGP and also 18 1000 MTS memory. I don't quite understand what that means. I try to look it up also in a lot of information sources, and just to see what kind of comparison could there be in terms of the normal PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro, how much of a boost or an upgrade that really is. And unfortunately, we didn't really, get much information. At least I can't really research and find it, unfortunately. There's been mentioned a little bit of exactly of an accelerated ray tracing. That's basically a fancy name, as I understand it, having that Sony is doing something special in terms of the ray tracing, and something unique, something new. Perhaps maybe something, a different name towards an overdrive of the ray tracing that we've gotten the opportunity of seeing, or something at least initially like that. Because if you guys know how ray tracing works, a lot of people would rather have not, in the system, because it really staggers the performance. And talk about the performance and everything and such, there's a mention also that there's a possibility for this console to hit 8K quality in terms of the games that you play. I think this feature is completely useless. Now, they can utilize it for future proofing and stuff like that, but for that, it's like TVs, mind you, right? They're way too ridiculously expensive for 8K to get for yourself, and it's too early. I still think it's too early. Like, even though 4K TVs are becoming far more affordable, a lot of people can afford these TVs. 8K, on the other hand, well, that's a different story. Now, it's a different story again because PlayStation 4 Pro, when that released, it was, I believe, initially starting up as a 4K capabilities, but that was back in 2016. TVs were already relatively popular and more or less mainstream, and the main way to get a TV is for you to get the 4K capable one. 2013, well, obviously PlayStation 4 original never had capabilities of going up to 4K, well, at least not to that degree, but now we're seeing kind of, cycle being repeated again. And thankfully, it seems like that 4K 60 FPS is going to be the norm from that point on, because like we've still seen few games that are still 30 FPS as a standard. That's crazy. Thankfully, a lot of and majority of the games at this point are 60 FPS in terms of course, if you initialize and opt into the 60 FPS performance boost. I think that 60 FPS in general should be the standard. So there should be no excuses at all. Like, I get that some games that maybe they are not capable of performing the 30 FPS. That's not our problem. That's the developers and the guys who have polished up the game. That's their problem. Because no matter how good or how bad the game looks, it should always be 60 FPS. As an example, to my knowledge, this is crazy just to think about it, right? Gotham Knights only supports 30 FPS. What is this? Like, the game doesn't even look that great, comparing that to Arkham's Knight as an example. And yet, when you think about that, it's just like, wait, seriously, it can reach 60 FPS? What is wrong with this? You know what I mean? But yet, when you look at this as well, like open world titles, they're capable of hitting 60 FPS as well. There should be no excuse of the other games that can do it. Limitations, that's not the issue with the console at this point. And limitations is perhaps the developers themselves, maybe they're incapable of actually having that 60 FPS, or perhaps the engine is the issue. One other game that comes to mind that had that kind of issue as well, that couldn't hit the 60 FPS, was a Plague Tale's Requiem, but some ways I kind of understand why. Like, there's so many rats on the screen that's quite ridiculous. It can even hit the performance issues. It could be a bit of a problem. I played the game, so I kind of can see why that could be the issue. I'm not giving it too much trouble. I'm not talking too much about this, but still, 60 FPS is the standard and should be continued on being 60 FPS. Alright, guys, there's really nothing else that we can really mention regarding of the PlayStation 5 Pro, PlayStation 5 Slim. I wonder if as well, will that actually be called PlayStation 5 Pro? I think it makes sense for it to be called PlayStation 5 Pro as well. A lot of people even arguing, saying that what is the point having this kind of a console upgrade? I kind of understand why they say that, but yet also, we have to get one thing. It's already been almost 3 years since the release of the PlayStation 5. And when you should see the PlayStation 5 Pro, it will be already coming up to 4 years. Now, a lot of people say that it just doesn't feel like that, and I agree, a lot of cases it genuinely doesn't. But now we have to consider thinking about the PlayStation 4 Pro. That came out in 2016, at the end of 2016. PlayStation 4 came out in 2013. That was 3 years. So it's just that kind of fact that we have to consider, right? It's quite insane. It genuinely is. Now, I heard also a report, well, I don't know if it's true, but Xbox Series X is not going to have that, middle upgrade, more or less, like having Xbox Series X Pro, or whatever they're going to call it. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, at least not for the time being, at least what they mentioned. And I'm not too sure if we can actually take that as a concrete information. I personally kind of don't believe that. They definitely want to utilize it and make sure that they sell more powerful consoles, since, it's business, it makes sense. But, also, of course, they want to prioritize Game Pass. Well, alright guys, that's all I wanted to have a little bit of a chat for today. Do like and subscribe. See you guys all.